Well, hello and welcome to the Wrap, episode number 26. It is Thursday, January 12th, 2023. This is a show wrapping up all things Zwift from the last week. We're talking racing, we're talking events, we're talking tech, and of course, we're talking fashion. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, as well as Facebook. Anywhere else? Oh, yeah, this is a podcast as well. You can download this anywhere that you can find a podcast. So go ahead and search up The Wrap as well as Zwift, and you should find my name as well as Anna's. And who are we? Well, I'm Nathan Guerra. I'm coming out of Wisconsin of the US of A, and my co-host Anna Russell is in a car somewhere in New Zealand. So Anna, how's it going? Well, let's talk real quick. What are we talking about today? It is going to be all about ZRL kickoff that's happening, the events on Zwift that are really highlighted, Tour de Zwift, and something called the Next Cup, put on by the Next Esports team, Zwift Microgrants program, a little bit of chatter about things we think that might need to happen in the garage because of the infamous bike swaps. And then we have our guest today, which is Martin Carew, co-founder, owner, director of WTRL. And that is the partner of Zwift that runs all things Zwift Racing League, if you did not know. And of course, we've got the fashion. Anna, what are you doing in a car?
I know, this is the only place I could get that was a little bit quiet. So I'm actually on a delayed holiday. We had like some crazy cyclones here last week. So I couldn't get to our family beach house because it was all flooded and the roads were closed. But we're here now. But it does mean that I am in a very small house with cousins, my kids, grandparents. So there's like 11 people in there right now. And I looked at my husband. I was like, I think maybe I need to do the podcast in the car. He's like, I think that's the only place that's going to be quiet right now. So here I am. I'm sitting in the car, which is actually not too bad. My arm's going to go dead from holding the phone, though.
You know, it's kind of amazing that you're in a car because some of the first Zwiftcasts, Simon had internet trouble for a while, and he had to go to a car in a parking lot to get internet to do the podcast, actually. You wouldn't know it from listening, but it's great. Like, so anyways, this isn't the first time, that's for sure, that I've done the podcast because of whatever issues that might be happening from it. And it's funny because your situation, I mean, even in chat right now, our buddy Sweet the Cyclist just came in and he's saying Anna's phone video quality is better than his work desktops. And, you know, it's actually working pretty well. And in pre-production, we said the sound quality is not that bad because you're in an enclosed space. You don't have to put any extra things up. And yeah, pretty good. Not bad at all.
This is real. This is real life podcasting. So, no, it's good. I do want to say I watched Llama's video on the peak Zwifting, which was really cool. And I sent Llama a message and was like, oh, it was so good to hear Simon's voice. Like, his voice was amazing, right? When he came on, he's like, hello, Zwifters. I was like, oh, I missed that guy. So that was cool. Just a shout out. That was really nice of Llama.
Yeah, and are you winning? You might be winning. I'm not sure, but I don't know. So I got to remember what you picked. Like, was it 41?
I think that was like 44, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay. You were around 40. Because 39,000 is the latest that we got. Right around 39,000 was the latest peak Zwift that we've seen. So it blew me out of the water. So I said 36 something or other. I saw that 30,000 and was like, as the top one that had been up to our decision making. I was like, are we really going to gain that many? But it looks like one of our topics today, Tour de Zwift, is working to bring Zwifters in. The reality of later January actually being when I got too much into my own myopic head of being like super serious pro cyclist and that like, well, is really anybody going to be jumping on anytime soon? And then I went to the gym the other day and noticed like absolutely packed, couldn't even get on anything as far as weights go. And then I was like, okay, it's happening. Here comes the rush. You know what I mean? That's about to happen. So.
I love the early New Year fitness hype train that just happens. Like, we're at this sort of beach house in the middle of nowhere, and I look across, and there's like a couple doing just workouts every morning. And I'm like, they have totally said, like, we're starting the 2023 well. We're going to do a workout every morning. And I'm like giving them a wave and being like, keep it up.
Heck yeah.
Do it.
All year. Exactly. That's the goal, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, everything's taken. I'm going to be like, introduce myself and try to be that person that holds them accountable. Are you coming? You're going to keep coming, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be one of us? Let's go. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so what have you been up to this weekend as far, obviously you're traveling. Have you, we saw you racing in ZRL, but for those that don't know, this is one of your first times listening to the podcast, Anna did an in real life Everesting just a week and a half ago, I think it is now. So, how are the legs been this past week? Have you done anything besides racing the ZRL?
So, okay. So on the podcast last week, I think I had a really bad reality check when I was like, how long does it take to recover? And I thought you'd be like, oh, a couple of days, 2-3 days. And you're like, I'd say 2 weeks. And then someone in the chat's like, I'd say a good month. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, whoops. So then I got, and you'd said do some intervals. So I got on Monday and I did Evelyn Gagnon gave me some track work intervals, but so I Zwiftified them. Did those like 30 seconds on, a minute off, and was like, oh, like it wasn't like my legs were like heavy, but I actually had like a couple of niggles, and I was like, oh, that's not ideal. So like, I'm not a cyclist.
Can you define a niggle? Can you define a niggle for me? Like what? Let us know. Let us know in like social media. I mean, this is a topic in and of itself. Like, is niggle a thing? Because I don't know what those are.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, a New Zealand thing. I love when these pop up. A little like sore muscle. You know, when you go, it's not an injury, but this is not just a tired leg. So I had like a little sore muscle behind the knee, and then my lower back on one side has been like,
like a pulled muscle. Sore. We call them like a pull, like kind of maybe not pulled or
not even to that extent.
Okay.
Like, it's like a niggle.
You just define the word with the word itself. I love it because it's that common of a word. Right on, Anna. Right on.
There we go. So that kind of made me go, oh, you know what? I'm not going to like go crazy on Wednesday because I don't want this to turn into a pulled muscle or something that puts me out for ages. Because tired legs, I think I'm not super bothered by, but I don't want to get injured. So yeah, I'd say I'm not recovered, but now we're at the beach. I think this is a sign, right? I bought, our car is packed full of like boogie boards, surfboards, all that stuff. And I was like, bring my trainer. So we bought my trainer, and then we got here and I was like, oh, I forgot the like power plug for it. So I think that's a sign, maybe like a bit of time off the bike and just relax, chill.
Have you taken time off the bike in this? I mean, last question along what you've been up to. I mean, when's the last time you took like a solid no bike?
This is a hard one, I reckon, for people in the Southern Hemisphere on Zwift, right? Because I would usually take the time off the bike now because it's peak summer here. We're on like holidays. But there's all the racing that's on, so I don't want to miss that. So I'd say this is a good time for me to take a little rest, come into Grand Prix next Saturday or Friday, nice and fresh. So
I tend to make the mistake of having to get sick to take the time off the bike sometimes, or you know what I mean. Well, and some of that's part of a natural yearly flu that might come around or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? That okay. Well, I'm sick anyways, and it's right around that time. That's October to December, and that's usually the time that cyclists kind of find their time to take off. And this year, I think I've been, some years I took too much time and was like, oh, I'm not touching the bike. And it was like a month of like kind of doing some exercise or whatever, you know what I mean? And then lost too much fitness, I feel like. And then other years it's been like, I'm just going to keep on Zwift racing and just go. And since I did the ZRL and I kept on training through kind of, it seemed not training, but trying to just have fun on the bike. I did kind of have to get forced into a little bit more rest in December, it felt like. Plus a lot of life things were happening. So anyways, always a good topic about when do you take your rest, but we're not doing that one today. What about it? I've been up to, let's see, what did I do over it's just base right now. Really, I'm not racing ZRL actually this season because we are debuting and really focusing in on a re-entry of the America's East broadcast here on Zwift Community Live, actually, with yourself and the entirety of the women's field in the America's East A's. It's been a lot of fun, but there's a lot of back-end work that has to go into that. as well as it's right up against the racing with the America's West, which is what I used to race, which came right after the America's East. But so, and plus it's just kind of time to, I told the team, I was like, I'm not racing this season, or this round, specifically because I can't race, be fresh, and do base miles and do my lifting regimen to get my total body fitness back that cycling kind of destroys in some ways, right? And so like just been completely focusing on like let's do and really even like getting a new look at how to do base in some ways and getting creative with it. So that's what I've been up to mainly, is just like let's go ahead and set that up and creating some new workouts around it as well. So not really racing too much. I might throw some more. I'm actually purposely backing away from racing right now in order to do that, because I found that it just gets way too difficult to manage for me. I know you can just throw races in a lot of times, but I feel like there's a hours per week cutoff for that kind of. I don't know if that makes sense, but like training load that you can actually do and throw some fun races in, at least for me, because I'm too freaking competitive. And I'll just like be like, this is the end of the world race for every single race. And then instead of it just being a race that's kind of going to get thrown in the middle of everything, in the middle of some base work or whatever it might be, it tends to ruin the base work for me, or if I'm working on force, or if I'm working on power, speed, whatever it might be, some of those more basic fundamentals to building up a cycling training program, I ended up sacrificing them too much. So yeah, backing off the racing a little bit, but anyways, that's what I've been up to. So first off, let's talk before ZRL kickoff. Tour de Zwift has just launched, and it is insane how many people are riding Tour de Zwift. What's the largest event that you've seen so far?
I mean, and I go on in weird time zones where I don't think they have like peak numbers, but one of them was like 2,500 people, the one that I was joining up, and I was like, whoa, what the? So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Actually, that's our fashion for later, is ranking all the past Tour de Zwift jerseys. Should I tell my funny story now? I mean, it's not that funny unless you're a Zwifter and you really care, which most people who listen to this.
Well, we talked a little bit about your ZRL experience, so go ahead. Since we are already a little bit on your ZRL experience, let's go ahead and hear about what happened. Like what?
Oh, so I realized I needed to get the jersey picture for the show today, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go get on one of those group rides. And so I was like, oh, I'll just jump on the group ride prior to ZRL and do it as a warm-up. But I kind of didn't end up doing a warm-up there because other stuff got in the way. And so I jumped on for like 2 kilometers and got the picture of the jersey, and then immediately was like, okay, let's go join the ZRL race. Left and was like all set. And I put, because I knew it was getting broadcast, and I know that I put a lot of like heat on myself for picking good fashion. I put so much effort. Whoever was watching my Twitch stream the other day, where at the end of it, I was getting ready for ZRL. I picked these shoes where they just had a slight pink accent that matched exactly the pink Tron and the pink on the kit we use for Riot.
Your passion right now is so obvious about like you were showing up for the best looking situations, and then we noticed during broadcast you're like, who is that rider? Wait, is that a Riot rider? Wait, that's Anna Russel. Why is she in the 2023 Tour de Zwift kit? And then I figured it loaded for you, right? Instead of your regular kit, and boom, you couldn't change it.
I know. So I saw my kit, so I was looking great from my angle, and then
it was a client side. It was a client side.
Yeah.
I see. So client side, you saw something different, but it was showing all of us. It was that bug that we had. I don't know. Is it a feature? Is it a bug? I'm not sure.
It's quite fun when that happens, though. You know, when you're commentating and someone's on like a mountain bike, and you're like, what the? How are they keeping up with the pack?
I heard you did a bike swap. I heard you did a bike swap.
I did 2 bike swaps. Or 4. No, 3. I went, this probably shows I was like, I did the first climb and I was like kind of at the back. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it up tempo. I'm going to do a bike swap. And I don't know. I see that you've got something in the show notes about Cassie Nelson's bike swaps. I'll be interested in her experience, because mine, like, I was on the Tron, which I shouldn't have been. I should have been on my bike the chapter, which was way closer to the Canyon Grail. Instead, I was on the Tron. They had to scroll all the way up to find the canyon. Yeah, anyway, but it was fun. It was. I loved doing the bike swap there because then you like get going again and you just pass like 20 people up the climb. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were seeing client side or not on you because you were on the Tron still when you were coming toward the finish line, actually. So I was like, what's going on there? For those that don't know, what am I talking about client side? Sometimes when you make a cosmetic swap in game, it doesn't always take for everyone else. So everyone else sees you on the thing that you were on before. How that's repeatable seems only to be in events from what I've seen. So it's like if you join an event on something specific and then you go ahead and make a cosmetic swap while you're in the event, for some reason it doesn't always take. I think that's the only way that's repeatable. At this point, I'd almost call it a feature. So, all right. So, Tour de Zwift, real quickly, for those that do not know, Yorkshire, France, Paris. We're talking London. It's going to be New York, Watopia, Mercury, all of them. And it looks like you have between each of them, it's like 2 to 3 days, 3 days to ride each one of them, right? So it's January 9th all the way through February 2nd. And then there's a stage 8 that's going to be happening in Scotland. But since the Scotland map isn't released yet, we have to be watching out for that.
Is this just me, or are all the tours and challenges getting shorter? Or is it always a month, usually, that the Tour de Zwift is on?
I think it's usually about a month or so, but I do think that they changed it up last year to be a little bit more, I don't know if the word's accessible or like as far as, I think we remember talking about this, that the rides are not these epic, like they're not quite as like these crazy longer rides. You know, they have a few different options still, but everybody can kind of do the main event, right? Like it's not like that easy though. I mean, the first one, the Harrogate Circuit reverse for the short one, the standard ride to Tour it well, the long ride Royal Pump Room 8. I mean, Royal Pump Room 8 is still a hard course, right? Like that's not a piece of cake course on Yorkshire, but you're not like out riding the Four Horsemen or something, you know what I mean, in order to complete their long. So I think that's the main change that they've made in the last couple of years, is that, and I think that connects the community a little bit better, is that like those who want to challenge themselves that are perhaps lower category versus those in the A's, they can all kind of meet still in this longer ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it might not be shorter, but I'm struggling to get any of these challenges done at the moment. I couldn't finish Zwift Academy Road or Zwift Academy Try. I'm going to try Zwift Academy Run. But yeah,
maybe you might be right. There might be a couple days. Was it a full week? Was it a full week in the past? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, I felt like it was just more like 4 or 5 days, but it's good. But man, I'm like, I just can't, I don't know. There's too many things I kind of get distracted, and then like new shiny thing, race that. And did you do? I know you mentioned it, but I think not because you're in base session. Did you do the next race series?
I was really thinking about doing it, and it just wasn't gonna. I mean, 3 races in a row at that level. So that's the next thing we can talk about. Actually, it's actually on our topics here, and the next cup, it got announced early last week, or maybe a little bit before. I did get contacted by Next to see if we could broadcast it. Sunday mornings are a tough one for us, but I definitely am all about supporting what they are up to, and it's 3 races in a row, each of them about a half hour or so a little bit longer than obviously a lot longer than the tiny races. And I guess the participation was insane. They had like 100 to 150 in the A category of the top men's racers. That was only one I was able to look at, but I was interested in racing it. So I was like, oh, who is racing? But then I had to commit to like, no, if I go and get committed to this next cup thing, I'm going to get addicted to it. I'm going to be like wrecking my base. But seems like a really cool idea. I want to see how it works out too, as far as what the whole motivation behind the 3 races and how that takes for a format for racers, right? You're always trying to find this like When you're a race organizer, which we're going to speak into one of the best race organizers we've seen out there for when it comes to Zwift racing today. So maybe we're going to ask him, but you gotta kind of find this, what works for the human body at a certain level of racing to get people to keep coming back and be attracted to something like this and keep it entertaining. What do you think they're aiming at here with this, like 3 races over an hour and a half? It's kind of interesting.
I mean, it just screams worlds format to me. I haven't looked at the race design, but 3 races at a 30 minutes ish in length is kind of a worlds feeling to me. And I would say, I mean, I don't know their ins and outs of their decision making process at Next, but I would say that they're like, we want our riders to go practice this format. Why don't we just make a race series that's similar? So if I was doing worlds, I'd be getting on there and doing at least 1 or 2 of these just to get like, I mean, I always say to my athletes who are doing Ironman events, you go out and you do those big simulation sessions. You practice your gear, you practice your nutrition. So if people are taking worlds seriously, they could go do these, dial in the nutrition, dial in what gear they're using, as in like what they're wearing, dial in their fans, dial in whether they need ice or what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, it is coming down to the marginal gains of esport now. Like I actually just got interviewed by Chris from Zwift. And he was like, what's your future career in esport racing? And I was like, if I'm really honest, this level has gone up so high that like you can't just I just kind of came in and was relying on a bit of fitness and good Zwift racecraft. But I'm like, a mum of 3 kids. I don't have that dedication now, which I think we're going to start seeing where people are doing like specific hardcore training for Zwift Worlds kind of events. And I mean, you would have seen in America's East, like the level between like Jackie Godby and Kristen Kulczynski, like the power numbers they're holding, it is insane. And I know Kristen Kulczynski is not having champagne until after Worlds, so that tells you how seriously she is taking.
Yeah, because pizza and champagne is, I think, definitely her recovery drink a lot of times. Not suggested, just but yeah, I think on that point, it's a really good point actually about how high the level has gotten, because there are a lot of individuals at this point where Lionel Viastin's a good example. Someone I know for sure in the past 2 years or so. And before that even too, but took a little bit of a break, completely shifted his training to completely focus 100% on Zwift racing, 100% on virtual racing, where the season now has swapped for some people, where summer is the time where it's just having fun, hanging out, getting some base training in, and moving into spring. I mean, not spring, into fall. And then from there, they start ramping up, looking toward something like Worlds and the big races when it comes to Grand Prix. There's a lot of individuals that have made this their mainstay. And the reality is if I'm going to go and race at the top level in mountain bike again, I've said this to Gabby, like, I have to turn it into a machine. That's all I have to think about. You know what I mean? Like I have to completely, and some things have to get sacrificed, etc. And as you were saying, like as a parent and all these other stuff, like, okay, it's time to start. What are your goals? Well, do I want to have goals even? Because what does that mean? Yeah. Like what? Because it might start disrupting some other goals in the reality, because that's the level that it's gotten to. And that's where, as far as the level goes, it starts becoming that pro level of a sport. Now, there's a whole nother discussion we get into. Does pro level mean getting paid, or does pro level mean this is, the highest level with, where we're discovering the best genetics that we possibly could mixed with the best determination in the world? Those are total, which one is pro? Great discussion to have another time. But yeah, definitely next. So to come back to our topic though, Next is one of those programs that are out there that are trying to develop these kinds of athletes. And I think that that's a great point, that it looks a lot like what's going to be happening with Worlds when it comes to the effort, the time frames. And so they went ahead and in the community replicated something like that, because the truth is, besides Grand Prix, where else do we see what Worlds is actually offering, Anna? I don't think we actually see it much of anywhere.
No, because you've kind of got the longer stage races of Flamme Rouge. You've got the tiny race series, which are very short, sharp. The tiny ones would be great for that race 3 at Worlds where you're just doing multiple laps and sprinting. Like I think tiny is quite good for that. And then you have ZRL, which is, just a race with TTTs as well. So yeah, I think they're tapping into that Worlds one. I mean, the only thing I'd say is they are brutal races. Tiny is hard but short. So you can kind of do that hour effort and then be like, "Ooh, that was hard," and recover. Whereas, yeah, the world's format racing, as it should be, is very, very stressful on the body, I would say.
That's interesting that this is one of the first times that I've ever seen where there wasn't a hub to go to in the community that you could replicate the bigger competition that was happening at a Grand Prix to Premier Division level. A lot of times things have come out of the community. Now, this has come out of the community in that Zwift have partnered with the teams to develop these formats, and they've gotten feedback in order to develop these formats. So there is still the community aspect that, hey, what's desired here? And then it is a test series with the Grand Prix to get the riders' feedback afterwards and then go ahead and see what's working for them, what's not, and continue to develop things. But it's cool to see that Next is going, wait, we don't have this somewhere where like I can just go jump in and test my legs in this. And that's pretty rare when it comes to a discipline within a sport. Like you should be able to go do your warm-up game for the real game, right? And so I think it's pretty cool that Next is up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. They could have kept that in-house and just, be running their own series to help their own athletes. But no, they've gone out to the community, and that's what it's all about, right? That big community love and spirit. So yeah, thanks Next for putting it on, and go give it a shot if you want a bit of pain and suffering, I'd say.
100%. Well, next up, last couple of things here. Zwift Microgrants program. Anna, do you know a whole lot about that? I saw this announcement. It's really interesting. I got some ideas about why this is happening, and I think it's pretty cool. But what are you thinking here?
Yeah, so I go on, Zwift Insider and just check out before the show if there's, interesting different stuff that's there that I hadn't seen and that we could talk about. And I saw that pop up and I quite liked it because I've been running a hub project here with sort of smart trainers and some hubs around the country and getting more youth involved. And I was like, oh, this is a great grant that you could use to support projects like that. So it looks like it's $5,000, I'm assuming US, across 5 projects. You get some, I think it's up to like 20 free Zwift accounts, and you can use that money. I would say like you could just use it to go get some trainers and be setting up some kind of hubs or things like that. So looks really cool. I don't know if it's fully worldwide. I know that they mentioned the US, UK, and Brazil actually, but I assume it would be everywhere. And you've just got to be a non-profit / charity organization to be setting it up. So a lot of that, I don't know how it runs in the US, but a lot of that would be like national sporting organizations. Like here, we're all kind of set up as non-profits or a charity or incorporated societies is what it's called here. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool. If you're passionate about esport and you're wanting to grow it a bit, there is like a little pot of money there that you could try and apply for.
Yeah, so just real quick, going to pull this from the Zwift Insider post, actually. The micro grants starting in 2023, Zwift will award $5,000 grants to qualifying organizations aligned with their social impact mission, and will also provide each grantee as many as 20 complimentary Zwift accounts. Now, I have done quite a bit of in-between work with Zwift, with organizations that we've done live broadcasts with in order to support their charities, in order to get their name out there. I've also done some work in the background to help out some connection points or help train up some charities that didn't really know how to maybe use the platform or connect with the platform. And Zwift have the problem of they are the go-to place, and every charity ends up knocking on their door like, hey, we are doing this, or we're doing this with bikes. We're doing this with bikes. We'd really like to use your program. And at a certain point, you just can't help everybody. You know what I mean? And so they do a great job of saying, well, here's how you could use our program. But then it looks like they have a place on their site that like they've went out and chosen specific charitable organizations that they're going to like partner with on a larger scale, right? And then they've also done this microgrant program where I've seen different charities. Like there was one situation where I was working with Big Brothers and Big Sisters to try and help them put on this really cool event that one of their local organizers was involved with our Broken Spoke team. And they were like, we're going to use Zwift to try and raise money with all of these different businesses. And they were doing like a week of these businesses competing against each other on Zwift, and everybody was getting on at the business, etc. But they didn't have a contact, and they didn't really necessarily have the ability to figure out how to do this and work directly with Zwift in some sort of way. I see this filling that gap where it's like there's a like regional, local, or countrywide thing that needs to make a connection, and if it aligns with Zwift, they're able to like find these kinds of things. I have a feeling they'll find pockets around the world maybe for something like this, rather than it being concentrated somewhere to work with these 5 different organizations. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, I know there's a lot of passionate people out in the community. I've actually got a call with someone next week from the States who's doing something similar that I was doing with sort of youth hubs. He was doing it in Connecticut, I think. So yeah, it's there's a lot of people doing some cool stuff. So yeah, and now you can maybe get a little bit of money to help you along the way.
Zwiftinsider.com/microgrants. Also just search Zwift and microgrants. Should be able to find information on that. Last up, let's talk. Okay, the bike swap. I got a message in the bike swap situation from this past Zwift Racing League. If you don't know what a bike swap is, if you hit dirt out on Zwift, and usually it's only on dirt. I'd be really surprised, if it were for cobbles or anything like that. But your bikes go different speeds depending on what bike you have, if it's going to be a mountain bike, a gravel bike, or a road bike on the dirt surfaces. This past race had a pretty good amount of dirt. And usually if it's going into a climb, avatars are going to be moving slow enough that it might be worth it to do a bike swap. Obviously, Anna did a bike swap. But this brings up the ability to do a bike swap. And I got a message from Cassie Nelson, who races for Aeonian, one of the top teams in the Women's Americas East. She was going to be on our broadcast this past week. And we were talking about how her camera didn't work for the broadcast, but then she was like, well, at least you missed my insane bike swap. Oh my gosh, it was such a mess. I ended up on a TT bike, and then I ended up on this bike and swapping 5 different times. Oh my, and I was like, oh man, we really missed it, and so, but it brought up this topic that and I wanted her to actually give me a reaction video. I didn't get one. So we definitely want your reaction videos about how things go when it comes to these kinds of anything that we have like a calm down Carissa type moment here on the broadcast. We always would love to have those to show what you're thinking about Zwift stuff. But the garage experience, really highlights one of the needs here, because there is equipment needs in Zwift, and being able to just make quick swaps is really important. I mean, the other day I actually put a note in to Zwift in one of my channels here to say, the other day I logged in and was on my TT bike with the pace partner. I had to log out, swap again, because I didn't know I was even on my TT bike. That took forever. I couldn't find whatever. Then there was like a bug I found because of that, and then jump back in. Just the garage experience. I know bringing something up that you've talked about, but we haven't gone too far into it. But just being able to kind of, I don't know, like have a preset at least of like the things that you want, so you can just go click, click, and boom, I'm on a different bike.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Cassie's experience, but mine, because I was on the Tron and it was a last minute decision to bike swap, I couldn't really find my gravel bike. It was way up and I was scrolling. So yeah, I mentioned this in our New Year's show of like the best feature I'd like in 2023 is some garage, I should say, my Kiwi accent, garage kind of way to organize it. And so you go into a race like this with a bike swap, and you could at least like drag and drop the 2 bikes so that they're close together. So you just have to go up one, pick it, and leave. And also just like trash a whole bunch of bikes that you don't really want, or just put them to the side, in the like dusty corner of your garage with cobwebs and spiders roaming around and stuff. Just leave them over there. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So you keep at it. You be the squeaky wheel on that chat with Zwift, Nathan.
Well, I don't think it's just as a racing thing. I think it's also like will I even use the garage thing? Like if in some ways too, it's like if you get enough stuff in there, you're scrolling forever. It doesn't really make sense where stuff is. And like, then I have to go into each and every brand to find maybe what I want. And I want to only find that one time. And then, cause there's a lot of different brands in there, and you're searching like forever. And then I'm here to ride my bike and I end up spending 20 minutes just finding stuff like there's so it's not just a racing thing. I think there's also, at least in the back of my like head, I have like an intuition whether or not I'm doing something that's worth my time, and I like the moment I click over to all the bike brands, I'm like, I'm wasting my time. I get to that point. I'm like, ooh, at that point, I feel like there's a rub point within Zwift when it just comes to like your UI situation where you kind of need to hurry things up here, get a little bit smoother experience, because you've created all these bikes and you keep adding them. People need to be able to find them. Like, people need to be able to search. I mean, obviously there's resources already going into creating these things. Well, like, let's make it organized so we can find it.
Well, I mean, I even go into, first off, it warms my heart that everyone cares so much about the garage, because it just, shows me that it's so important. But, I go into my son's, like, Hot Wheels game, and the first thing that pops up is the garage, and you scroll across and you pick your, whatever, car, and then the next screen is you pick your accessories, and then you pick your color. And I'm like, oh, it'd be great if the garage was just a little bit more interactive,
And you know what's so great is, like, I literally put it in a note saying we need a loadout screen, and you just described a loadout screen like that. And your thing is like a game where your equipment matters. Like, if there's a game where your equipment matters, then when you log into the main place where you're logging into the game, your avatar should pop up, and it's like that's the focus, is like, who is it that you are that is loading into the game, and then maybe attach, because I like what they've done with like giving all the events, and it's been shown that like by the way that things are set up now, there's way more participation in events. So like, awesome, the new UI, totally great. Just some identification then around how you're loading out would be really good, because like all the games I play that have equipment needs, you have that loadout screen. You have that, like, what are you loading out with? And jumping into the game. Like, what guns do you have? Because you better have the right gun, because you're going to die if you don't have the right gun.
Can I tell a funny story before we get into chatting with Martin?
100%.
I just saw it come through this morning. Hopefully she doesn't mind me sharing, because it's funny. Nyquist, who races for Absk Finesse, I think, but also is on Saris. So she sent the broadcast of USA East to her parents to watch, and she sent through the exchange between her and her mum and dad, and her mum's like, your avatar didn't stand out very well, so I couldn't really see where you were. And she was like, oh. She's like, why don't you just make your avatar look more like you? Because I was watching Kristen Kulczynski, and her avatar looked just like her with a nice little bun at the back, and it looked great. You should just make yourself look more like Kristen Kulczynski. And then her dad comes in and is like, well, in fairness, Kristen was at the front of the race the whole time, so she had a lot of camera time. So maybe that's why her avatar looks so good. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. I love it. The parents getting in on the avatars as well.
Man, that's amazing. Like, sometimes, you wonder, like, we're playing this online video game, and like, you think it's only a certain generation and just Zwifters, but goes to show there's a little bit more reach beyond, and like, that's some commitment to paying attention to what's happening with the game.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great story to hear.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love that one. That's so awesome. All right, everybody. Well, that's the start of our show here, where we go over everything. But next up is going to be our guest, Martin Carew, the co-founder, owner, and director of WTRL. If you don't know anything about Martin, he also not only co-founded WTRL, but that which was a racing team up front, but also he organized the team time trial for what it is today. And then that actually led into the organization of the Zwift Racing League. Martin Carew, welcome to the program. Good to have you here.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Doing good. Martin, now, I'm not sure a lot of people know the background of where WTRL exactly came from and what it did before Zwift Racing League. I would really, and we work together quite often because we do a lot of broadcasts and stuff together. Obviously, we were broadcasting the team time trial for the longest time. So I have a pretty, Anna as well, obviously being a commentator on a lot of stuff in the past and racing a lot of this stuff for a really, really long time. But a lot of the viewers out there might not know the reality of what WTRL is prior to ZRL. Do you want to just give like a really quick little summary for everybody of like how WTRL came into existence and what it did up front?
Yeah, sure. WTRL, what is it? Something like autumn, fall, whatever you want to call it. 2018. WTRL started with its one event, organising races on a Saturday afternoon in the UK, middle of the night here for me in Canada. And that they became pretty popular. They were picking up sort of 500-600 riders. And in the meantime, there was work on the concept of bringing a team time trial to Zwift. And by the time we got, I think it was something like February, March, or April 2019, we launched the first WTR team time trial, 17s in the first one. And those ticked along and progressed quite well, incredibly manual, very spreadsheet driven, in terms of being able to post the results somewhere, which ended up being the Facebook page. And then we kind of ticked along and grew from there. We carried on with our Saturday races. We were doing the TTTs on the Thursday. And then, of course, you and I got talking. I think it was around TTT number 54, 55, something like that. And then by that time, I think we were about 60, 70 teams a week, and we were pretty much the biggest races on Zwift at the time. Hence your interest. And then from there, obviously building a lot of the graphics and results boards that you use across various different, not just ours, but various different events, assisting us with live as well. But anyway, the TTT really hit the ground running when COVID came along, and obviously everything on Zwift got busy then. But I distinctly remember being away in Maui on what's known as a president's trip for the company I worked with at the time. And we were gobsmacked that it was 120 teams the first time we hit it, and then the world went into lockdown, and within a couple of weeks we were 900 teams a week. Huge amounts of work involved to be able to cope with that. People, for those that were there that time, will remember the team tags and how we had to correct the ones that had been misspelt. It's not much fun going through 5,000-6,000 people and trying to figure out who's supposed to be in what team. And that was all manual. And then, of course, from there on in, it just grew, and then we'd proven that we could cope with the numbers. And Zwift, out of the blue, approached me one day and asked about potentially setting up a big racing series for them. So, a couple of months later, the contracts were signed, kind of forced me into incorporating a company so that we could deal with the contract legitimately. And here we are 2 years later, so 4 years since its inception, with Zwift Racing League on a Tuesday, WTRL TTT on a Thursday. Huge amounts of learning and steep learning curves. I come from a background of treating people with cancer, not coding and software. But I am a former professional, very high level rugby player, very much a team sport kind of guy. It's just kind of where all this comes from. I love the team sport elements of it. I ended up coming into Zwift because I went to visit a new doctor to register, and the cheeky guy called me obese. So started looking for ways to prove him wrong. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm 6'9". That's over 2 meters,
Whoa.
and former high level rugby player. I'm not a light guy by any means. I used to spend a lot of time in the gym. Um, so I've been called fat and obese my entire life because the BMI system doesn't cater for people 6'9". So yeah, that's how I ended up getting involved in Zwift.
Whew, that's
Wow.
quite, a lot going on there. And I mean, it's crazy to me, Martin, sitting here that 2018, and I believe it was yourself and Steve Milliken had started things up there. And then from there to this point, 2019, we start talking at number, 54 or whatever that might be. And that we're already 4 years down the line. I feel like it's like a blink of an eye. But we've had how
Yeah,
many seasons of ZRL now at this point? And that's like halfway through the journey that you've had so far.
so this is where it gets confusing, depending on what you call them. So we've had 9 rounds, or 9 seasons, or 9 chapters, but we're currently season 2022-23, round 3.
Sheesh. It's a
So
lot.
3 years it's been going now. 3 years as of September would be its anniversary.
So, Martin, if you look at the history of, I'll focus on ZRL first. So, if we look at the history of ZRL, I mean, what has been a highlight for you looking at, I mean, I can tell you really quickly what it's brought to me in my life and meeting a whole bunch of people, but what's been a highlight for you personally about getting this series off the ground and now having, the biggest esports series on Zwift humming away?
Well, it's a thing for me. Obviously, I come from a healthcare. It's a business background, but it's from a healthcare background. I thoroughly enjoyed what I used to do, seeing the improvement that the treatments that we were doing were making to people's lives and relatives and all that kind of thing. And that translates well into Zwift. Obviously, people at home, some are recovering from cancer treatment, some are you know, having difficulties in their life, and Zwift is their escape. So I still get that enjoyment from the fact that you're providing something engaging, and it's team orientated as well. So you're not just jumping on your bike and staring at a TV or Netflix in the background or whatever. You're actually communicating and talking with people from all over the world, and the relationships that get formed and built. All of that kind of stuff. That's my highlight, but not just the RL, but also for the team time trial as well.
So, okay, then from Team Time Trial, then just real quickly, that then also became a main part of, then we'll jump into more of the ZRL right now kind of stuff, but the idea of the Team Time Trial kind of launched into what the ZRL is in some ways, because the Team Time Trial was the first place in which we really made sense of teams interacting live in an event. Whereas like teams before, where it was like, try and get your first person across the line. The more traditional, like it's all about setting one person up to be the winner on the day, right? And that was always the focus. And the Team Time Trial really brought in this, no, the whole team needs to work together for a common result at the end of the day, which is the time that you get, right? And then that's developed into even more things at which a team can work on, where you now have this FTS, FAL, the points racing. So it's really the TTT idea of a live event with a team working toward that one common goal that isn't just one rider across the line, but everybody is able to participate in a meaningful way. I think that really launched into what ZRL could be, it sounds like, Martin.
Yeah, certainly to some extent. I mean, obviously TTT is one kind of real life way that teams are brought together in cycling. Cycling, we see Team Ineos, Team this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. But in reality, when they're cycling, they're supporting one rider, like you mentioned, exactly as Zwift was. It wasn't about how the whole team did together, and that's with the team time trial concepts and connecting people and getting people to talk. And work together. That's where that came along. I mean, I think most people will be able to relate to this if you've ever been a gym member. I have been a gym member many times. I personally hate the gym and hate going on my own because it's not motivating. Whereas with rugby, I used to go along with my team and we'd have little competitions, who could lift the most, who could sprint fastest on the bike, who could row the furthest in a minute, and all that kind of stuff, and get the leagues and the competitions going. And that really motivated getting fit, staying healthy, and obviously in terms of rugby, the team getting stronger and better to be able to do better in the leagues that we competed in. And I think the objective of bringing the team element to Zwift was to satisfy that. It is far more motivating if you've got a couple of guys or girls around the world saying to you, "Oh, come on, we need you for the team." You're actually more likely to go and get on your bike, stay fit, stay healthy, have a bit of fun and enjoyment. So that's where that comes from. Because there are many people motivated to jump on a bike on their own, do a race, see how well they do. But there's many people, particularly in terms of the Zwift audience, who would be more motivated by teammates nagging them. And we've all been in that position on Friday night through our teen years. I don't want to go to the pub tonight. All of a sudden, you get a text message, a couple of phone calls from your friends. 3 hours later, you're lying on the floor drunk.
Oh, gosh. At least we're getting our heart rates up. Yeah, at least this is getting our heart rates up, right?
Oh yeah, this is a far healthier way of doing it. But yeah, I think everyone can probably relate to, I don't want to go out tonight, and then 3 hours later you're sitting in a bar.
Or 3 hours later, I'm like on a live stream with my head hung over my handlebars, sweat everywhere. Like, what did these guys get me into? Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
and
love
the
it.
same translates into the Zwift and the fitness side of things. You get nagged into, mate, you don't want to let your team down, or we've got 3 people, we need one more, or whatever it is. And yeah, it just kind of goes from there. So it works well.
Um, so I guess, Martin, I saw a meme that has probably been one of the funniest memes I've seen on the Zwift Racing League Facebook page from the Lion King, and it kind of showed like a picture of the Pride Lands, and it said, "This is ZRL Racing. Don't go over into the Shadowlands." That's the ZRL Facebook page. So I guess
Oh,
it's maybe a I found that hilarious, and I did want to have you on the show because sometimes I go on that Facebook page and I'm like, whoa! Like we talked about it last week with segment battle points coming out. I was like, woo! There's like that page has so much traffic, it's unbelievable. I think there was like 250 comments when you first put up the explanation of segment battle points. Like I mean, I hope you have like a relatively thick skin because I'm reading it being like, if I was event organizing, I'd be like taking like a bit of this to heart. But I guess it's my question is, how do you sort of ignore the noise and keep going ahead with innovation and not being afraid to sort of put your guys out there and to try new things when you know that there's I'll call it, a passionate community sitting there in the wings?
I have a pretty thick skin, and it's got a lot thicker since I got involved with Zwift. And personally, I hate social media. The way the way it's used in many respects, and particularly, some of, put it this way, many things you read on social media you would never say to somebody's face. That's the long and the short of it. I tend to carefully manage what does go on social media. I'm aware of how many notifications I get of people who are on that page. I think it's 18,000 or something now. They've got there's a lot of notifications for all those comments, posts, and everything else that get onto that page. But yeah, no, for me, I mean, at the end of the day, I thoroughly enjoy and love what I do. The social Facebook stuff, I could do without. Um, and I'm always looking, yeah, and I guess that's one of the reasons why WTRL is where it is in partnership with Zwift. 4 years down the line, we're still some of the biggest racing just on our own. If you take ZRL out of the equation, we're still some of the biggest racing that goes on Zwift. But for me, you've always been looking at innovation, looking at ways to improve things, getting results out faster, time splits in the TTT, finding ways to do mixed category racing through the TTT and all of that kind of stuff. Always been looking to improve things, and then the ongoing battle to try and locate and find some data somewhere out there that might be able to help us do what we do. Because I will stress this, is something I see a lot on Facebook. There are some people out there who are a bit sore that they feel that WTRL get all the help from Zwift, get all this email marketing and everything else. Well, Zwift Racing League is a Zwift-owned event. I'm contracted to manage and run it. We'll basically write the software, control the results, deal with all the customer support side of things. Zwift are entitled to market and email about their own stuff, as far as same as I'm allowed to email about the TTT on Thursday if I want. But the tools that we're provided, they're no different to what everybody else has access to. We just have a slightly faster way of doing it to make sure that the Zwift Racing League results get out in a timely fashion. As I'm sure, Nathan, you'll remember the times we had to cancel broadcasts because the data sources had died, and that doesn't necessarily reflect very well on a flagship team event of Zwift's if the data fails and things like that, and we have to wait a day or a week to get the results together. So yeah, the reliability has been significantly improved, and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, my motivation really is I'm constantly looking at new ways to do things, new ideas, new content for people to play, if you want to call it that, on Zwift.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wanna stress that, Martin, is that what you're, and just come back to, first of all, um, your first response about how you're having thick skin and it getting thicker. Um, After I saw the segment battle points, I messaged Martin and was like, "Ooh, hey, Marty, like, are you doing all right?" And Martin's response was really awesome. Actually, he was like, "Well, there's a lot of comments, but the reactions, there's way more reactions, and they're mostly positive." So I was like, that's a really good way to like look at that. Is like there might be a lot of people chirping, and at least there's a conversation that's happening, and there's actually I do a little bit of study in psychology. I listen to some stuff on that, and there's actually a reality that our minds tend to focus more on the negative. That negative things stand out to us, like in our relationships, in our daily life, because we're made to take on problems for survival. And so the things that like bother us, they come up first and foremost. So it's like the negative comments in the social media in that space, unless you realize like, hey, you've got to weigh this out and really like step back from your initial emotional reaction to the fact that there is a negative comment, because there is a conversation happening in those groups that is trying to get at something positive. It is trying to pull out what would be the best experience. Some people are just there to beat up somebody because they need to beat up somebody, right? Like that like they think they need to beat somebody up. So that you got, whatever. They have their own issues they're bringing to the table. But then it's cool, I think, Martin, that you went and said, well, wait, though, there's a whole bunch of people who have actually responded with a like or a heart or and that little response is like, they're a satisfied customer. They're a satisfied person who likes what's going on here, and they're going to get on with their day and go race the Zwift Racing League. But they gave a little reaction to that and took time to do that. And that the comment section, it sounds like also you're taking it as like, yeah, this is to find out what people want, and maybe they don't even know what we want. We're still trying to figure out what they want, and we're going to keep on trying new things.
Yeah, definitely. Just to say, having come from that healthcare background, when you're looking at somebody who's ill when they're sick, you're looking for the positives as well as the negatives. And for me, when it comes to social media, I can look at a social media post on the infamous, I think you now call it that, now infamously busy ZRL page. You can go through there, you'll see 200 comments, and you'll see discussions and arguments, bickering and fighting, and there's positive stuff in there too. But for me, I just need an overview. So I look at the likes, loves, hates, and without fail, with SPP, it's something new, it's something innovative, it's something different. I don't think it's been done before. For me, as I said to you, there are however many 100 likes, and there are 3 angry faces. That to me says that the majority of people actually quite like it. So there we go.
Well, I wished we had at race 1 when I got dropped, and I'm sitting there racing with a group, and I was like, oh, I need something on the line here. I need to get myself around this course. So
I didn't think of that, Anna. Let's go ahead, Anna. But I want to come back to that, what you just said, actually, in a minute, because it's a really good point. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my feedback to you, Martin, I mean, I just love things that are new and innovative. And I immediately saw the value of segment battle points because, there's certain races where I seem to just have a complete blowout and I get dropped. And it depends who's around, but it adds a bit of skin in the game. And we've been using this with our team anyway to keep them motivated to be like, yeah, you're still fighting it out for the finish line, which is in 20 kilometers. Whereas now you can fight it out at each segment. So I hope people saw it in race 1, especially the ones that are not usually in the top 10, go, oh, this would have actually added that little extra bit of motivation throughout the race. So yeah, I'm quite excited. I know it didn't come around for race 1 after I'd done a full analysis and sent my team a full strategy, Martin. So we were all prepped and ready, but we're thinking... you think race 3 will be ready?
Yeah, what happened and what's up with race 3? I want to know what do you want to give people an idea of what happened and then when we might see this?
Okay, so Zwift Racing League in the first week is, as the registration closes and the days that follow and the emails that come in of people registered in the wrong place, can I change this, can I do, it's hectic. To be honest, it's some of the most hectic days I think I've ever had in my 45 odd years now. I unfortunately was ill over the weekend and carried on plugging away to the point of pretty much being broken, and spoke to Zwift on Monday morning and said I've also got wind that there's a problem at one of the data centers that we use, and was concerned that obviously for SPPs to work, as you just said, Anna, you did a whole bunch of work to try and figure out who might be up against who and who you'd need to beat and all of that kind of stuff. Well, we have a system that will show you that. And the intention is that it shows you live throughout the race, give you points tally live throughout the race. With me being ill and slightly behind, and with the risk that data center was going to go down, it was just not worth rolling out the SPP points to then have a whole bunch of people who couldn't see anything, couldn't find out what was going on. It's not fair across the leagues and divisions because it was ISP related, so some would have seen it, some wouldn't. So we've decided to pull it for race 1. And the idea is that race 3, because race 2 is a TTT, race 3 they will be back. And just to give a very quick overview, what will happen is if you go to the WTRL website on race day, particularly within an hour of your race start, it should automatically prompt you if you want to go and look at it. So
Cool.
there's no links, no nothing. The website knows where you're racing, what time you're racing, and it will do the rest for you. Obviously, the complication as it stands, I think it's a common complication for Zwift. Not only have you got to have your companion app, your TV, your Apple TV, or your laptop, or whatever it is running, you also need this other device to be able to look at it if you want to use it live, or if you just want a list of people that you're up against to look out for. So it's more peripheral at the moment. And depending on the success of SBPs, depending on the feedback, depending on what people think, there could be the opportunity for some in-game support later down the line, as it stands at the moment. So we've got to prove it works first, I guess, and then maybe it'll be considered.
It's always been, I mean, obviously with the TTT, we have a TTT pens now. And that was early on with broadcast, we were broadcasting the events. And then next thing you know, it was like, we need an event portal. There's always been kind of this push of development of like figuring out what's going to land well in the community. And if segment battle points do, I mean, that'd be amazing to see things where we start having in-game add-ups of points and being able to see who it is that you're racing against. And I want to come back to that idea that you said, Anna, of like, I see it in the broadcast as well. We get to a point in the broadcasts where like the race winner went across the line, but I'm like, there's all these other battles going on. But at the same time, those battles are still kind of individual. Like they are team against team, but you can't see it necessarily kind of live, like they're actually racing this person. It's kind of like a general get across the line as fast as you can for the team. So it's almost like they end up in this own personal time trial against the couple that they're around, kind of. But like, I really like that idea that now it can get tactical against these specific people, and it isn't just kind of like, I'm still against everybody. Instead, that group can only focus on themselves. Right? Like that group of people can, and then start playing tactics amongst themselves rather than this idea of like, let's go see it. I don't know. It just changes the whole conversation up because you can then play games with those specific people that you're racing on the course.
I think as well, because if you looked at Eric Schlange's like pie chart, segment battle points were like 43% of the points for the event, right? So we were like, this is amazing, because if you have a team where they've got, 3 riders who are just always top 10, always top 5, they're quite hard to beat, and it can kind of be a little bit demotivating when you've got a team of 6, right? And so now, that's the beauty in it, I think, is it's made a lot more skin in the game, a lot more motivation for your 6th or 5th rider who kind of felt like they were just, rolling around for finish line points, which, to be fair, was sometimes just like a point difference. So they could kind of finish and be like, oh, yeah, like I kind of contributed. But now they're actually really contributing, and it's pulling the team together nicely. I like it.
Well, I'd say I come from team sports background. Rugby was my number one thing. I've got height, so basketball and things like that too. And every coach I've ever worked with always said, if your team wants to win, every team member has to beat the opposite man. Simple as that. Whatever it is you've got to do. So that's the long and the short of it. And like you said, with cycling, it doesn't necessarily work with that in the team side of things. You've got people who are cruising around for their handful of finish points because that's their contribution to the team. And we looked at how the points kind of break down across various different segments: top 5, next 5, top 10, top 10, trying to find ways to incorporate everybody in the team, so everybody in the team would have something to do and be able to beat that opposite man or opposite woman, perhaps, depending what language you want to use. And that's where SBP points came from. The idea is to kind of break the race up won't be not necessarily going to be perfect to start with, but most races end up split into several groups, and then to be able to have the battles go on within those groups. And
Yeah.
in all the testing that we did, the best way that worked was to be able to use an elo system around riders, to be able to rank the riders within the team, and then put them up against the equivalent opposite number in another team, and see how they get on.
That's really, I absolutely love this idea, because there have been a lot of breakaway situations where teams end up dominating in a very specific league, and now as it makes it so that the entire teams are participating, I feel like it's going to start evening things out, where an entire team can participate against an entire team. It isn't just, the top 3 in a team are competing against the top 3 in another team, and that's really the end of the story. Now you have a much larger story, and I think you might, because in America's West, my team it was dominating, and I was like, man, like, we've won after 3 races, and I would really like to race the rest of these guys, though. And I think there's some talent amongst the rest of these riders here. This is going to be able to make it so that every talent at each level within a team is going to race each other. Absolutely awesome. And then the reality that you said, Anna, want to really, really say, that's so cool that the race continues on after the first person crossed the line in a very, very meaningful way. So cool to see. So I like segment battle points a ton. We did see a lot of feedback. I did want to, I think they're a great idea. And if they don't hit well, from what we've seen from you, Martin, and this kind of segues into our last thoughts here, is it seems like your motivation is just to keep innovation going within, constantly within the world of Zwift. And so, highlights of that over the last 4 years of running this series, and then what's coming up next. So those would be the 2 things maybe we'll end on here, is what are your highlights of running this Zwift Racing League and TTT, and then what are you most excited about? Any hints about things that might be coming down the line? I mean, we have conversations, there's just 5 things I'm like, oh, let's talk about this thing, or whatever. I don't know what's going to become a reality, though.
Well, yeah. Well, when it comes to ZRL, yeah, there's a whole pot of ideas that have been put together that could happen. That's down to discussions between myself and Zwift and what they would like to see incorporated and what they wouldn't. There are some ideas for the future, but nothing definitive on the table at the moment. But in terms of WTRL, we obviously the team time trial, mainly because for 4 years there's been 2 of us at WTRL, two people doing this. There's now just one, and many people won't be aware of this. Steve Milliken actually left WTRL back in middle of November. So there is just me at the moment doing most things. I have a couple of part-time staff members and talking to a few others, but I have some software development people coming on board. We obviously, WTRL owns with GPS as well. We've got some great ideas in terms of how we could use that to bring about some new games and new ways to use Zwift that we hope would keep people motivated. And again, all of this has to come down to being able to pay for it. People shouldn't be doing all this stuff for nothing. So yeah, we've got to find ways to make some money to employ some of these people too. But there is something on the horizon. It's going to come out in a test format soon, and that is a WTRL phone app for iOS and Android. And that will also carry things like the live score and all of that kind of stuff too.
I was wondering if he was going to open up that box. Oh,
no, it's coming. It's nearly ready, and that will certainly be. I don't think it'll be available in time for the finals in its full blown version, but we will also, fingers crossed, be able to shut down the Facebook pages because it has its own team and club chat sections and things like that in it. But yeah, the app has been built around the team facility because obviously I'm well aware at the moment we have Discord, we have Facebook, we have all these different methods for communication. So this will offer chunks of that, and later down the line more within the app as well. So WTRL continues to be, I think our original name was World Tactical Racing Leagues. And I think jokingly, we kind of said actually we should be where team racing lives.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, there are some things coming along. Something that blew up yesterday has got the mind ticking. I am talking to Zwift about potentially finding ways to use different types of equipment beyond bikes and treadmills on Zwift as well.
I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but
I love
oh
this.
man.
Yeah.
Oh, well, do you
Hey,
know about this, Anna? Did you see the Facebook group and the
No.
video? Oh,
No.
oh my gosh, Anna. Well,
Tell
I mean,
me.
shout out to the ski erg guy. You know, it's
Oh.
pretty controversial because he was using a multiplier in order to do it, and he was at the front of an A race while skiing
Oh, no.
live on YouTube. Ouch, right? Like,
Oh.
ooh, you know, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like, I see in Martin loves rowing. I know that. I know that Martin loves, you know, any way that you can get on the platform and be able to compete or whatever. So, like, yeah, I agree with most of the comments. They don't need to be so mean or rude, some of them, but like, dude, come on. Like, you shouldn't be using a multiplier to keep up on the ski at the front of an A race. And I don't know about skiing against people who are on bikes that in a Zwift racing cycling competition, but if we can create other way, I don't know. That whole thing, because I do believe strongly as a very competitive person in equalization of input, like that you like, and so that whole side of things is really important to me. But at the same time, like, yeah, get people skiing, get people rowing, get people doing all kinds of stuff. Like I'd love more running, like really great. So interesting to hear that Martin's like, oh, what are we gonna do about this?
Well,
Cool.
for me, honestly, I like rowing. I've always loved rowing. I'm a far better rower than I ever will be a cyclist, especially, you know, when you weigh 18 stone and you're 6'9", you might as well walk really, rather than try and ride a bike. But no, cycling for me has always been a way to get to work, pop to the shops, whatever it is you want to do. It's not. I've never been a bike racer, but I've always been involved in competition across multiple different sports. But for me, you know, just to address the ski erg and the rowing, and yeah, dare probably I'm going to get a message very quickly from the people I work with at Zwift. Hand cycles, that many of them use apps to connect to Zwift because they don't connect to Zwift through the companion app. They don't use conventional trainers. They use very different systems. And the whole point of the third-party app is there is a boost section in there. And if all the apps very clearly say this, you are supposed to use the boost to match your cycling ability. So say, for instance, if my FTP is, I don't know what, if I call my FTP 250 watts, what I am supposed to do when I row is use the multiplication factor so that when I'm rowing, my equivalent rowing FTP comes in at 250. Because when you're rowing, you're never going to make 250 watts. Just be honest.
Yeah.
Which if you're trying to row alongside a friend who's cycling, and you're not using the elastic band system, you're left way behind. So yeah, in terms of the skier guy, yeah, if he has a cycling FTP and he's using his boost to match that cycling FTP, I personally wouldn't have an issue with that. The boost that was being used was pretty high. I mean, not to say it, very, you know, full admiration for the guy. That is some power. I live in Canada. You know, I've had a go at cross country skiing. It hurts. I'd far rather ride a bike than cross country ski. You know, full credit to the guy for what he achieved. But yeah, the boost mode was set far too high for him. I had to wait to speak to Zwift to confirm how they wanted to handle it. At the end of the day, it's their rules, their competition. Kind of gave my advice, and we went from there. But no, I would like rowing does exist within the game, or partially within the game. It's not a finished system. You know, perhaps if we can drum up some support, you know, using the scale of things that WTRL can get at, perhaps we could get that opened up and released. Maybe we can bring some skier or rowing competitions along. Who knows?
Wait, are we going to have cross country skiing up the slopes of Alpe d'Huez? Is that what we're talking about right now?
Cool.
Oh, well, I was jokingly saying, wouldn't it be cool? You could cross country ski up the Alp and then downhill race to come back.
Heck yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Would
That sounds
absolutely
great.
love that. We would absolutely. Well, all right, we gotta move on to our next section of the show. But Martin, it's been really great having you on, and I mean, we could go on, and maybe we can make this, bi-yearly thing or quarterly thing, I don't know, updates on racing with WTRL would always be really awesome because we always love to chat, Martin, and obviously we'll be talking later in the week or today even more ZRL stuff when it comes to broadcast. But always love to have you around, Martin. And if you guys want to check out, if you don't know what WTRL.racing is, you don't race on Zwift. And that's not even a joke. Usually we say, do you even know this? Do you even Zwift? But WTRL.racing, if you would want to get involved in it, go get check out what's happening with ZRL as well as everything that Martin's been talking about, or the TTT that happens right now on Thursdays. So, Martin, thanks a lot for joining with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great to talk to you.
Of course. All right. Well, Martin Carew, a lot of work, Anna.
I will.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I just got the battery notification on my phone too, so beware if I drop off. You're gonna have to cover fashion on your own there, Nathan.
Oh gosh, I better
which
hurry
will just
up.
be a dream. I did just the reason I reached out to Martin, particularly at this time, to have him on the show, was because I mean, I kind of frame it nicely by saying the community is really passionate, but there were definitely a lot of comments that were just bordering on, come on, there's a person behind WTRL. Like Martin said, there's one person now, that he's there. And I just, this show is about bringing out the people behind the avatars, or in this case, behind the race organization. And yeah, like he's got a great story. He's doing this for all the right reasons. And I think it's just important for people to know, because I hate that side of social media. I've got a story where you were putting up the East Coast women's kind of battle, and the race director from ATP, comes and he's like, nonsense. And I was like, oh, crushing. I feel terrible. And
that got a lot of reactions too. I was like,
I know. Well, so I gave him a call, and talked to him on the phone, not through social media, and was just like, hi, what's up? We're trying to get more eyes on women's racing. I thought this was a good thing. What do you want us to do? And, we had a good chat about it. So I think the problem, people, that Facebook page can get a little bit out of control. And I hope everyone now, they've seen Martin, they've heard him talk, they know that he's doing this for the right reasons and he's trying his damnedest. And I think as well, delaying segment battle points, people are like, oh yeah, right on, it's not ready. And I'm like, oh, when you hear it, he was sick, there was a whatever, I'm not good on that side of things, a system error somewhere.
The data servers, the data servers were going to struggle with handling the data, and then it'd be you can't see even what's going on for a long time, go back, it'd be a whole nother headache on top of the regular headache.
So huge kudos to Martin to go, you know what, I'm going to get flack for delaying this, but I want the community to have a good experience with this. So, I hope everyone enjoyed that interview. I really like Martin, and I think, he's doing a great job for the Zwift community and racing in general.
I want to address what you talked about with the whole, hey, are we overhyping the 2024 versus Riot situation? And I just want to say, that was essentially what it felt like was happening in that post. And I was like, well, you guys have been the head-to-head battle most of the seasons, right? And then I was like, so I'm just going to grab this battle that has been going on in order to elevate the attention on women's cycling within this thing, and then highlight everybody across the entirety of that but the reality was we hadn't covered that zone for 2 rounds, and so we didn't know even kind of what was going on for the last 2 rounds either. We saw kind of some of the results, but I had to go do a ton of research about where are things at? I had to pick your brand. I had to pick all kinds of teams to figure out, hey, where are things standing, and then start really telling these stories. And what I like now that we are focusing in on one race in one zone is that we're going to get this whole narrative of battles that are playing out. And I think this is going to be the direction we're going to start handling a lot with the ZRL now, with just a few different focuses on them in order to get those stories throughout the entirety of a season. So, and I do appreciate the feedback. I said that in the post. I was like, hey, thanks for the feedback. Be on the watch out. We are highlighting ATP as best we can, as well as Aonian and the rest of everybody. So that'll be good for the rest of the season for that America's East. And TTT, you saw my post on socials yesterday. So next week, TTT is Riot the favorite. You're bringing in Courtney Nelson. Wait, what's going on?
I know, we're bringing in Courtney now. We've got we've picked some people out to go into certain races. So I've got to come up with the race plan now, which I've kind of got in my head. And I think, I need to trust myself a bit more. I'm going to just like tweak some things and see how it goes. I mean, 2024 is unbelievable at TTTing, so it's going to be a hard one to beat. But yeah, and on that, like to get eyes on esport racing, whether you're kind of hyping more than like is actually there, that's the whole point about getting people eyes on. It's like a boxing match, right? They sit there in that press conference with all this hype around it so that people watch the thing, right? Watch the match. If you sit there at the start of a boxing round and they're like, hey, go have fun out there, man. Yeah, you too. Everyone's gonna be like, this is gonna be the boringest race. Like,
right, the amount of hype around two people stepping in a ring to beat each other up is like huge. You know what I mean? There's so much that build up. That's a great point. I mean, one of the most popular things in the entire world when it comes to sport, which I'm not sure you could call it a sport because it's just a freaking drama show. It's essentially a soap opera in 2 to 3 to 15 men jumping and women jumping into a ring to wrestle each other. That's what WWF, WWE is, right? It's all anyways, but at least we get to see the real deal when it comes to the racing most of the time. But yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Okay, fashion,
I'm on 10%,
fashion. Here we go, 10%. Here we go, 10%. Well, jersey pick of the week into our fashion show, and you actually did multiple jerseys because it is the Tour de Zwift. I really like what you did here. So let's take a look through the Tour de Zwift jerseys from the past. We're going 2020 all the way to 2023. You're going to do analysis on these as well?
Yeah, a brief one. So I think this is the 2020. It's pretty plain. I don't mind it. The pink matches the off the map headband perfectly. I do like the royal blue shorts. They're not seen enough in game, and I think they look really good. I mean, I'd give this one like a 6 out of 10.
6, yeah, I was gonna say 6.5, 6 maybe. That's a good one. 6. I'd agree there 100%. It's a good kit. I like that the 2020 is on the back there. I do like the design there. From a branding perspective, I'm not sure that the big 2020 on the back there was known 3 months before 2020 became like the craziest year in the history of all years.
I know.
Right? But, and then we have, this is the 2021 kit. This is slick. I think this is a pretty sweet looking kit.
Yeah, I don't mind this. I think this is when they started pairing up. You could actually buy it in real life. So this is obviously the sort of in real life look of the kit. For some reason, I don't have this one in my garage. But yeah, I'd give this one probably a touch high, maybe a 7, just because it's quite unique. The sleeves are black on a white jersey, which is different. I think Trek might be doing that in the World Tour racing this year. But yeah, it looks cool. Like it's got that kind of Canyon SRAM jersey feel to it, just with the geometric kind of colors and styles. And yeah, like this one. It's a 7.
I like what you said about contrast there, the white and the black on each other. And actually, Lanthon Rouge did the recent reveal and his judgment of all the kits, or whatever. And I did notice that highly contrasted kits played pretty well in the pro peloton, and it makes them stand out. So I'd agree that the contrast is really what makes this kit, in my opinion. So, and then how do I have such a strong opinion about fashion? Oh my goodness! All right, 2022. There it is.
I'm giving this maybe like a 3.
Oh man, that bad.
I don't like it. The reason I don't like it is the color palette. So you've got that brown in there with that teal blue. I just find that color combination, I just hate. Like it's so, so maybe it's a 2 out of 10, not even a 3 out of 10. It's, like teal and brown. I just couldn't think of anything less like inspiring.
Oh my goodness. I don't think this one's that, well, okay. I'll give it a 5. Man, 3 is pretty low. The 4, 5, but yeah, I can see it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest kit. I mean, but I wouldn't go as low as a 3. 3 is that's pretty bad. Man. Grim. That's pretty grim. All right, let's go ahead. This is this year's 2023 Tour de Zwift kit. This is what you get. Anna, what do you think here? I'm gonna guess you're gonna give this 5.5. But that's my guess. It matches really well, but...
Yeah, I'm giving it a bit higher. I'm going to go a 6. So it's not as high as the 2021. And the reason I kind of like it is the grey shorts are kind of a really cool coloured grey. Like they're not sort of just a solid grey. They almost shimmer and shine a little bit. And they look great with the sort of neon greeny yellow that they've got going on. So yeah, that part's really cool. I don't know about those kind of reddish sleeves. I think that kind of throws it off a little bit. It kind of adds too many colors in there to the palette. But yeah, the gray is what kind of has pushed it up to sort of a 6, maybe a 6.5.
Okay, but what if they think if they didn't put those red sleeves on there and they just stayed consistent, wouldn't you feel like for some reason I feel like the change up makes it so that you aren't just looking at someone who puked. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I'm always kind
of, if the whole thing was that color, you'd be like, but then because they did it made it just enough that it's like, okay, this works. I don't know. Like that's my take.
I'd tie it with the gray. I'd have that kind of shimmery gray sleeves, so it ties in with the shorts a bit more.
Right on. All right, and then our garage pick for the week before Anna's phone dies. This is an interesting one. I wasn't sure what you were sending me, but I actually like what you picked here.
Oh, I put this on my socials. I was like, just how good does this look? Like, amazing, right? Someone came on my Twitch though and was like, oh, it looks like someone's thrown up. I was like, no, it doesn't. It looks great. So I leveled up to level 56, I want to say, and I unlocked the paint job. I was like, oh, I'm actually going to go check this out. It's on the Zwift Steel bike. And you can put this retro paint job on when you're wearing your favorite 1980s retro kit, paired with those wheels, the Zip Superflies. Doesn't that look great? If the steel wasn't so slow, I would be riding this in every single race.
I would agree with you there. As far as like a right now standout, you'll have in games a lot of times you'll have the loadout or the kit or the fashion of the moment. Essentially, you'll have that specific skin of the moment, the cosmetic of the moment, and I do think with the recent level unlocks and this paint job matched correctly, I do kind of feel like as far as the meta fashion, right, this is the one of the moment. I don't know. I like this one a lot. So yeah, I think I actually lost Anna though. Oh no.
Wait, you've got
I think, do we have you still, Anna? I think we only have audio from you. Yep. Oh, there we go. We got you back. Oh my gosh, you froze and I thought I was going to come back with frozen Anna and you'd have to finish this. All right, we're going to probably have to go pretty soon though.
On the last juice, my phone is on fume. It's dying. I can.
Oh, there we go.
I can.
All right, it's all good. It's all good, okay. Anna. We got through it.
Need to sign off.
Yep, Anna's signing off. She's out doing her thing, a vacation it looks like, and she'll sign off with the falling asleep, Anna, as you can see if you're watching the broadcast right now.
Daryl, I need to just smile.
Yeah, just smile. Just smile, Anna, and it'll all work out. All right. So if you didn't know, this is also a podcast. We've been live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Make sure to follow us on social medias as well for Zwift Community Live. We'll be posting all kinds of things about everything that we've been talking about. For this next week, I think Anna is going to be resting, it sounds like, because her trainer isn't. She doesn't have a trainer where she is and she's on vacation. She's just going to be hanging out on the beach, it sounds like, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to be doing a whole lot of base force work, as well as maybe launching a new club, actually, out on Zwift. So be on the watch out for that, for things that we're going to be doing on live streams with my personal channel, it looks like. So make sure to be on the watch out for that. Zwift Grand Prix is tomorrow, so myself and Dave Toll will be on that on Zwift Live's pages. Make sure to be checking that out. And go download the podcast if you want to listen to this anywhere that you go without watching the live stream. Just go ahead and search The Wrap and Zwift. We will see you next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and as always, ride on.
Yeah.